from the Indian corporate governance domain. Today, India is the sweet spot in the world for, the world is looking at us for business and investment opportunities. And when India is eyeing to become $5 trillion economy, it's the thought leaders of corporate India, that is the board of directors, the minds who are working to make that happen, who are going to play a major role. Now, boardrooms are a place where fortunes of great companies are written. And through this boardroom talk series, we bring the unheard boardroom stories where all the pillars of good governance, whether it is independent director, promoters, founders, executive directors, women directors, or even investors, directors, CEOs, CXOs, they play very critical role. Also, briefly, let me introduce you to Mentor My Board. Mentor My Board is today a brand known to even Finance Minister of our country, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman. And yesterday, we celebrated our first anniversary of that event. So we host various certification programs like WOOM, Ideal, Board Mastery. And we also believe in continuous learning, and hence our Board Tattva series, which happens month on month, are well appreciated by our members and board aspirants. Log into the platform of Mentor My Board to get access to 70 plus blogs, various tools, and also opportunity and, get right informative content related to your board journey. Do join the momentum of good governance with us, where more than 2,000 plus other board leaders and aspirants are there at mentormyboard.com. Now, welcome to this 53rd boardroom talk and 11th in this third series with Dr. Ganesh Natarajan. Welcome, sir.
Thank
Who
you.
has been driving governance with his massive experience of being in leadership for over 30 years. Let's start today's interactions with Ganesh, sir. So before we start, let me introduce him briefly, though he doesn't need introduction, but his illustrious journey. I mean, I was really amazed the way he has, taken those roles so meaningfully. And every role, when I was talking to him, every role has such a deep effort behind it. So Dr. Ganesh Natarajan is executive chairman of and founder of 5F World, a platform for digital startups, skills and social ventures in the country. He's also co-founder of Global Talent Track, Skill Alpha, Lighthouse Communities Foundation, and 2 Indo-US joint ventures. Dr. Ganesh has masters in industrial engineering from NITI, Mumbai, PhD from IIT, Bombay, and advanced management from Harvard Business School. He's received distinguished alumnus award of IIT Mumbai and NITI, and has been recognized by EY and Asia Pacific HR Forum. He has completed 2 successful CEO tenures, over 20 tenures of Aptech and Zensar Technologies, and Harvard Business School has written and teaches 2 case studies of Dr. Ganesh Natarajan and his success through vision, communities, and innovation. So he's also been a member on the central board of SBI, chairman board on the board of Honeywell Automation. He's also served on the boards of Hinduja Global, Educate Girls, Asian Ventures, and the list is really long. So he's been chairman on the board of Industry Association NASCOM, is the also president HBS Club of India and charter member of TIE. He's author of numerous books, and we will really talk about those books, sir, in our interaction. He's set up Lighthouse Communities, which is to touch million lives with job and entrepreneurship. Those are really amazing initiatives, which I was just talking to him a few minutes ago. He stays in Pune with his wife, Dr. Uma Ganesh, and their daughter, Dr. Karuna Ganesh. And she is physician scientist at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York. So such an illustrious profile, sir. Welcome to this boardroom talk series, and we would really love to have, very wonderful interaction with you on your journey. So welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Divya. And I really enjoyed myself even speaking at your physical events. Yes. And it's amazing the kind of work you're doing to build the director community and get some good thoughts going. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, sir. So with such an illustrious journey, sir, can you share your first board experience, your initial days of your career, and how do you see your career transformed to be a seasoned board leader today? So can you share some thoughts on that?
Well, my first board experience was really when I was running this company called Aptech. And Aptech, of course, as many of you know, became one of the market leaders, computer education in 42 countries, including market leader in China. And as part of that initiative, our promoter, Mr. Atul Nishar, had also started a company called Hexaware, which of course today is a super success story globally. But I was one of the initial directors on the board of Hexaware, which kind of gave me that impetus to understand the software export business better. And later on, as you know, I moved to Zensar, which was 100% software exports company. So I would say my first board stint as a Hexaware board director probably started in 1995 or 1996. And since then, it's been mainly our own boards where I was a CEO. And after 2016, I've got into other boards.
Amazing. And now, considering your rich experience with the companies like Aptex and SAR, how did you foster the culture of innovation and adaptability within the organization? And how does that translate to the boardroom's decision making? Can you just correlate that? Because a lot of promoters, I'll tell you, keep struggling. And when we talk of Mentor My Board, it's not only about independent directors. It's also about building strong promoters and founders to see as the board leaders of their own companies. So, some thoughts on that, sir?
No, yeah. If I answer this question in detail, it'll take the full half an hour. So I'll try and make it brief.
I,
I think both the success stories of Aptech Computer Education as well as Zensar were on a bedrock of innovation. And let me quickly tell you, I mean, there is my belief is innovation is not just a great product like maybe an iPad, but it's also process innovation, business model innovation. So Aptech was all about business model innovation because we realized that we were way below the market leader, NIIT, when we started in 1991. But we quickly adopted a almost like a fully franchised model. So we
Mhm.
built the intellectual property and we had innovative ways of working with small town franchisees, a major Chinese joint venture partner like Beijing University, and very large franchisees. So I think that was the secret of our success. Similarly, when I moved to Zensar, I mean, we were a little company in a forest of giants. So we said we have to innovate, and we actually bought some innovative ideas from the US and made that mainstream. So we actually worked with very large companies like John Lewis and Fujitsu and Cisco and Marks and Spencer. And our whole theme was if you want quick, agile solutions and later on very good digital solutions, come to Zensa. So my belief is that if you've got to succeed, you have to have a unique point of view. And this is something that I also bring to my boards. So even the discussions I've had as being on the State Bank board or the Hinduja board or Honeywell for that matter, is how can we innovate? How can we stand out in the marketplace? Which is extremely important, as you rightly said, for a promoter, for a CEO, and a board director to keep looking at.
Absolutely, absolutely. So wonderfully you connected the innovation and the decision making at the board level. And I think everything, whatever is happening new, it starts from the top. I mean, it's always the top down approach. Unless the top leaders are imbibed to those kind of innovative ideas coming into the organization, it cannot percolate down, in the organization. Absolutely perfectly, you elaborated on that. Now, my next question comes to you is, can you elaborate on the strategies and the leadership approach you deployed, in these companies to drive the remarkable growth? I think, in Aptech and Zensar, you've mentioned that, 44% CAGR was the growth. So what was, the key learnings on that, and how did you navigate those challenges? So if you can share some of the challenging moment of your life, which was kind of a life-changing, moment for that company overall.
Okay, let me answer that question, and it's a little complicated. If any of you wants to know me more closely, you should buy my latest book, which is actually a novel, but has a lot of my autobiographical experiences, and it's called a Passage Through Life. And there I've kind of talked about this, saying that look, I grew up in a village in Jharkhand, and
Oh,
so for me, as I keep saying, the only beanstalk was education to get me where I was. But because of that early experience of working with the Ramakrishna Mission, being very active in a social sector sense, right from the age of maybe 7 or 8, that's something that has always stayed with me. And when I joined Zensar, I said, look, we will focus on what is called the triple bottom line, which is not just profits, but profits, people, and planet. Today, of course, ESG is a fashionable word. Everybody has
right.
a sustainability report. But in those days, and you asked for my most challenging moment, the first time I mentioned this to a financial analyst in the stock exchange, people were saying, first, why don't you focus on profits? That's what we want as shareholders. So I promised them that by focusing on people, profits, and planet, we will be even more successful in terms of growth, profitability, and most important, market value as compared to competition. And that is very true, because you mentioned the Harvard Business School case study. The Harvard Business School case study actually encapsulates the love culture of Zensa, where we really had a attrition of as low as 8% in a 30% attrition industry. And in fact, critical talent, which is 800 of the top 8,000 people, the attrition was less than 1.2%. And that was because we created this whole concept of ownership. B, we also ensured that people focused on almost 27% of our employees were actually working on social causes apart from what they did in the office. So it kind of
Amazing.
gave them the sense of, Zensar stands for great meaning to of course to shareholders, both the promoters and the minority shareholders, and other stakeholders like the employee, like the community we build in. And I think that's been the story of our success, that we didn't just focus on the chase for profits. And I'm glad to say that in the last 5 years of my tenure, the market value grew 44% per year. So we had an amazing success story even in the stock exchanges. And that is when I could hold my head up and say, look, I promised you that the triple bottom line will get us better than only the bottom line. So I think that kind of happened.
That's really wonderful, and I think what the point you touched upon about the people management and uh, bringing that inclusive culture, I think is very very important when we really talk. And I've seen personally a lot of times, because I've been company secretary, we deal with boardrooms day in day out, and last 15 years I have been practicing as a company secretary, and I see people agenda usually doesn't come to the board. The people, or the human resource is treated as resource, not as asset. So a very very important point. And again, building that culture of social impact in the employees also can lead to a massive kind of turnaround for the companies. Wonderfully illustrated, so thank you so much. Now this brings me to my next question. As a founder and the principal trustee of Nataraj Education, and also, I mean, you've been into social impact space for such a long time, could you share some of the key initiatives and the projects that your company or your not for profits have undertaken to promote the talent identification, mentorship in the small towns? And how do you see education playing a very very important role in fostering the societal development and economic growth? Can you speak about that
So
within some?
let me back up a little and tell people who are listening what I do today. I think my life is very neatly structured, as I spend 30% of my time on three large boards, which has always been my goal, that I should never do multiple boards and become a rubber stamp director.
Yeah.
In addition, of course, we have our own investment company where our whole focus is on working with entrepreneurs, particularly women entrepreneurs. And we are now building companies in culture, in history, all using digital technology. The most recent investment I have is in a company called Sustain and Save, which is going to really transform the way sustainability is thought about in the corporate sector. So I think this is what we do as a second piece. But 40% of my life, as you brought up the topic, is in the social sector. We ourselves set up about 6 years back an entity which was called Pune City Connect, but now is going national, and it's called Lighthouse Communities Foundation.
Wow.
Absolutely amazing team. Our CEO is from IIM Ahmedabad, and we have an outstanding team which any corporate sector would be proud of. And similarly, if you look at the other side, Educate Girls, which is set up by Safina Hussain, which to my mind is one of the most meaningful for enabling tribal girls to come back to school. And the third is Swadesh Foundation, where I've been on the advisory board along with many senior people. And what Ronnie and Zarina Screwwala have done is, again, district transformation to a very large extent. Apart from that, of course, I mean, I'm fortunate to be the only Indian on the board of Asian Venture Philanthropy Network, and that's based out of Singapore.
Okay.
Again, our mission is moving capital to impact. So if I crystallize all this, I think there's a lot of capital out there. Okay, both grant making, philanthropic foundations like Bill and Melinda Gates or Michael and Susan Dell Foundation, and of course CSR funds. But we have to harness those funds and use it in a significant way. And one
Amazing.
last point on social, our belief always is that the government has to be an active partner. I know it may be fashionable to say we'll do it ourselves, but the government has both the mandate and the capital to be able to scale substantially. So I think if you bring in all the people who are wanting to do good, put a method in the madness, and say, let's do it systematically and scale, I think we're finding amazing results in the social sector.
Wow. That's really wonderful. And when you speak about a complete ecosystem being built, and every pillar of that ecosystem has to, I mean, whether it is government, whether it is even the corporates coming in through CSR, it really very very important that all the pillars are playing their role very very importantly. And I think through these kind of not for profits, you have been doing uh, I mean, not only the way it is said that CSR a lot of times only is a lip syncing, but the actual impact what really society needs. And when you were speaking about few minutes before we start this interaction about girls after COVID moving out, and then how are you bringing them back to education? these are some, I think, wonderful initiatives. So kudos to you, sir, for that, and best wishes to keep doing such wonderful work. Now, because we talk of governance, corporate governance. You have extensive experience of serving as director on various boards, including the organizations such as SBI, Hinduja Global, and a lot of other boards. As you said, you had been on the executive side for a long time. So, what is the governance according to you, and how do you make those? I can say more effectively. You can oversight, as governance. So, can you share some your kind of thoughts and secrets of effective leader, whether in executive director role or in independent director's role?
No,
So,
I think
sitting
it's
in boardrooms, basically.
No, I think it's important to remember that there is a distinction between the role of an executive director or a CEO and, of course, the independent director. And to my mind, an independent director has to truly maintain independence. I mean, we talk about the separation between management and board directors, and I think it's very important. See, because I'm not saying that any executive team will have any wrong intent, but sometimes in the urgency to make stuff, you might take some decisions which could potentially be not in the interest of the minority shareholder. So I
Right.
think one of the first responsibilities of the organization and the independent board is to make sure that everything is in line, not only legally and statutorily, but ethically, moral. So that's one thing. Apart from that, I don't think there is any need to be any wall to be created between leadership and the board. So in every board I'm on, if you look at the Hindujas, you look at Honeywell, you look at, of course, State Bank of India, which to my mind is a paragon of excellence in terms of board management, and the social sector. I mentioned Educate Girls, Lighthouse Communities. Both these are now very excellent boards, and Safina Hussain as CEO of Educate Girls or Ruchi Mathur as CEO of Lighthouse are very open to ideas from the board. So I think the board has to add value, should not just make a noise for the sake of making a noise, but would make sure that the guardrails are there, the organization is moving in the right direction, and always keep in the minority shareholder interest in mind. Because somebody who's not in the boardroom is expecting you to be their custodian, and I think that's the most important role.
Wow. So I think you touched upon a very, very important point in this about being the custodian of the larger stakeholders, and not only the promoters and the founders. That is very, very important. And today I think we see a lot of failures. So in fact, I would love to get your insights on specifically the role of independent directors. Again, being custodian is definitely one part. Now, how do you those people can kind of, or independent directors can identify those early signs of the challenges or the failures? If you have some kind of anecdotes on that, that would be really, really insightful, because we have a lot of first time directors also as part of our community who really want to contribute a lot, but they don't know how do they participate. And again, one question which always comes to my mind is between two board meetings, what should be your role as independent director between two board meetings? It's not only going and attending a board meeting. So can you share some of your learnings, or how do you do that?
No, that's a good point, and let me answer your last point first. I think an executive director, an independent director, is not somebody who just shows up in the morning of a board meeting and then maybe in the car on the way starts flipping through the papers. You have to be prepared. I mean, in places like State Bank of India, for instance, there are probably close to 400 pages to be read every month, or even sometimes even every week. But if you have to do justice, you have to do that. Second is, I think the committees of the board where lots of time is spent. Like for 3 years, I was running the IT strategy committee of the State Bank of India, and tremendous amount of involvement, making sure that any consultant who are working with us is also questioned, bringing advisors required who are experts, and even helping the team to recruit. So we've actually hired people from outside as specialists. So it's a very fulfilling experience. So whether you're on the technology committee or the CSR committee or the digital committee, I think you can truly make a difference if you bring your expertise collaboratively, not throw your weight around, but collaboratively. And I find that young leaders in management love the input, because they really believe that this independent director is out to help us and not just ask questions for the sake of questions. So I think participation, time spent on understanding the nuances of what is being discussed, and not just being, as I said earlier, a rubber stamp to say, okay, I'll sign where you want me to sign. That is very important from an independent director point of view.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think so many important lessons coming out of this boardroom talk for our viewers who are watching us now and who will be watching us this recorded series on LinkedIn, YouTube, and even Facebook. We started our this live series on Facebook. This is the first series in on Facebook in this series basically. Now, can you speak about your books? I know you've written so many books. I really don't remember the exact number, but I think it is 12 or 13 plus. Uh,
13, 13,
30
no plus, no
Perfect.
plus.
Perfect. So, can you, I always wonder about time management and how do you take out time to align your thoughts, because you've been doing so many wonderful things. उसके बीच में time कैसे निकालते हैं सर आप? And also, can you recommend some books, for the board leaders, especially when we talk of people who aspire to grow their own businesses massively? Because, one of the focus for Mentor My Board is also the MSME boardrooms. In the smaller smaller kind of the companies which are not listed, they practically in a lot of private limited companies you will not even find boardrooms happening. The husband, wife, brothers, or friends are there, and board meetings are even happening on the dining table. So how do you what are some of the books if you can recommend for them as far as growth is concerned, and also again about your books. So what motivates you and inspires you to write so many books?
Okay, no, that's a good question. And if you look at the chronology of my books, I started
Yeah.
writing my first book in 1995. Been around something I'm doing. Even by the way, even my PhD in IIT Bombay, which I finished in 2004 as an external candidate, I joined when I was CEO of Aptech and finished when I was CEO of Zensar. And it was based on knowledge management and a very participative approach to ensuring the whole organization builds the knowledge community. I won't get into that. But if you look at my sequence, I first started co-authoring two books on business process reengineering, which was something that we were practicing as a consulting business within the Aptech Center for Business Transformation. My interest, particularly after my PhD, moved towards knowledge management. So my wife, Dr. Uma, and I collaborated to write a knowledge force book, which was based on our PhD work. Then I worked with my colleague Sandhya Shekhar, who herself is a PhD in knowledge management from IIT Madras, and she and I wrote a book which is actually one of the best-selling books we've ever written, and that has become a textbook in many of the IITs. Again, knowledge management. And
Wow.
then we moved on, and then I started writing about things that interested me. I mean, there was a time when India was looking for inspiring leaders. So a friend of mine, Manjari Joshi, and I went around and interviewed 20 successful leaders and tried to distill what was their source of passion. Then we wrote a book on dealing with Generation Y and Generation Z issues. And then, interestingly, in fact, I had a pause for almost 3 years. But then we wrote this very successful book on how to achieve digital success. Because everybody, including boards, keep discussing digital transformation. But how do you know what is the successful method? How do you deploy technology, processes, culture, analytics in a cohesive sense? In fact, that's something I was talking about even yesterday to a group. And finally, if you look at the last three books, which is an interesting chronology, we worked as a team in the Pune International Center. And this was after China came and squatted on large parts of Ladakh, as all of you know,
Hmm.
2020. That's when we said, how do we respond as a nation to China? And we wrote about the economic, the diplomatic, the social, and the military response. And that book really sold extremely well. And then some friends in government told us, look, I mean, you've written about China. Now, why don't you write about India's pathways to success, which was
Hmm.
the 12th book I wrote, along with, I mean, we have some wonderful co-authors like Dr. Mashelkar, and of course, people like Ajit Ranade, who's the vice chancellor of the Gokhale Institute. At that time, he was in the Birla Group. Ajay Shah, whose family actually created the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, Ambassador Gautam Bambawale, Dr. Vijay Kelkar, Dr. Mashelkar himself. So there's an eclectic group of people who get together and write. And finally, I mean, the reason I wrote this novel was, I mean, it is true for my worries about India. I mean, India today is in a great place, as all of us know. Stock markets are booming. Our prime minister is seen as a true global leader. And I think a lot of good things are going for us, physical infrastructure, digital infrastructure. But I worry about inclusion
Hmm.
because if we leave 400 million people behind in a 1.4 billion, those 400 million, that's not the right way to do it. So a lot of this work I'm doing today is to ensure that every Indian, okay, anywhere, whether it's in a slum community or in a tribal village in Pali, Rajasthan, feels valued, feels that they are loved, and they have an equal place. Like I did as a little boy from Jharkhand. If I did whatever I could do in my life, nobody can say that I will not have the agency or the aspiration to do that. So that was my last book. So that's a sequence. So you can see, in a sense, my life, my work, my way of thinking, my passion for the country, all that comes out through these books. So to answer your question on what books should people read, I think most people now get all their input from Twitter and Facebook. So I would suggest, the first thing I would suggest from time management is, do not spend more than 1 hour per day on social media. Okay, my wife spends 5 minutes per day, which is amazing. But many people are spending 4 5 hours. I mean, what do you gain by just listening to rant about either positive or negative about something that's happened? And then you add your value, somebody criticizes you, you get trolled. So it's just not worth it. So it's much better to spend some time to reflect what interests you, what is your passion. And again, one of the reasons I keep writing books is, I mean, right now I'm kind of researching a topic which is, how leaders should behave both in boardrooms and outside in
Wow.
the area of excessive automation, less reliance on people, generative AI, chat GPT, etc. And the reason I'm doing this is it'll force me to do research. Otherwise, we all have a view on chat GPT. Okay, mine is largely negative, but I won't get into that. But I'm looking forward to being instructed by the research I do before I write this book. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the whole idea. That you look at reading and writing as one continuum of your expressions, and I think that's how it's always been successful.
Amazing. Uh, I mean, definitely such an illustrious journey, and I'm sure all the books will have so much of experience from you coming in those books, your life experience, and we would really, really. I mean, I personally would really love to go through those books, and also kind of especially when you talk of innovation, when you talk of the thought process, the decision making, it's very, very important that what quality time you are investing where. So those are some key learnings which I am taking from you, not to spend more than 1 hour a day on the social media. But yes, for us, a lot of times social media is the core of generating business. So sometimes it feels that we are too much there, but that's a wonderful learning which I have taken personally. So we also have some questions in the chat box, and it's only 3 minutes. So I'll take one or two more questions from my side very quickly, and then there is one question by Mr. Jambunathan. I'll take it. Now, as a mentor and investor in the startups and the skill companies, how do you incorporate the principles of entrepreneurship and innovation in your approach? As an investor, as a mentor to them. So,
No,
your
it's I
thoughts?
think it's important to find potentially market leaders who can make real change happen. I mean, I mentioned my last interesting sustainability company, Sustain and Save, is run by this absolutely wonderful young person called Ankita Shroff and her sister Pranati Shroff. And between the two of them, they're really looking at leading edge ideas. So whether it is them or it is a young lady called Shivangi Kulkarni who's running this data privacy company with a platform, or Mini Menon who set up this company called Live History India Digital, now merged with PapleTree. All these are outstanding cases of success. Our own group company, which my wife runs, Global Talent Track, completely innovates in terms of how large organizations in the IT sector or financial services should spot talent, hire them, deploy them, even from small towns. So I always look for innovation in the eyes of the mentor, or sorry, in the eyes of the mentee. And if the company is capable, then I think people like us can mentor them to great success. So I think that's the main thing. And just one topic on, we discussed books earlier, I forgot to mention. If anybody reads my book, Passage to India, Passage Through Life, remember that the female character is me. There's a lady called Sharon who actually represents me. So don't look for the male character Abhay saying this must be Ganesh. Actually, Sharon is me. Okay.
Wow, that's really wonderful to know, sir. Super. Now, last question from my side, and then I think first let me take a question by Mr. Jambunathan. India may have high risk, high climate risk, but do you think banks and insurance industry in India are prepared to support the climate action? Your views will be appreciated here.
No, actually, Mr. Jamunathan, and thank you. You've made a lot of very interesting comments and questions. So thank you for all that. I think we are very prepared because I think the BFSI sector, I mean, I remember when I joined the State Bank board 3.5 years ago. Today it is trading at a market value which is almost 4 times what it was at that point of time. The reason being a very strong focus. I mean, as you know, in the last quarter, State Bank of India was the most profitable across the private sector in India. And
Right.
a lot of people used to write off public sector banks saying, no, they're all have to implement what the government wants. But in spite of strong focus on priority sector lending, in spite of very willingness to support MSMEs, I think we still made a real impact. And I think that's the important point. That if you look at a Bajaj Finserv or you look at some of the fantastic insurance companies, all of them are extremely well governed, doing good work for all segments of society. So I'm very bullish about not only IT, the future of manufacturing, and the BFSI segment today.
Super, super. So, one last key message to those board aspirants who are waiting for their first board opportunity. So, how do you grab those opportunities, or how do you identify? And some thoughts on networking, importance of networking.
Okay, so let me answer that last question because I know a lot of people, because everybody is very motivated to join boards, but don't join a board which you're not comfortable with. Okay, you please, I mean, as much as they might want to interview you, you interview management, you interview the chairman, and make sure that you're going to be comfortable. Because if you get stifled or you find that things are going wrong and you're not able to handle it, you'll be very miserable. So make
Right.
sure the first board is a very successful experience. That's why I said, I mean, I do private sector boards, either it's companies in the social sector or it's public listed companies, because there you can more or less assume that statutory etc is taken care of. So I think that's the important part. On networking, I think, see, you can't fake it. You either like people or you don't like people. I mean, why am
Right.
I doing this on a Sunday morning? Because if Divya asks me to do something even at midnight, I will do it, because I have a great respect for what she's doing and what Mentor My Board is doing. And that's true for everybody. Yesterday I was talking to the Maheshwari community in Pune and
Hmm.
telling them how in their small businesses they can actually do digital work better, or the
Correct.
work we do in TIE, which is the Indus Entrepreneurs Group. My friend Jitendra Tanna is on this chat. I mean,
Yeah, he's there.
what he does is absolutely amazing as a voluntary member of our TIE community. And similarly, Amit Nagpal, who's also on the chat, he's a very strong Rotarian with us, and he writes books. He's a very inspiring talker. So people like these are what motivate me. Because when you like somebody and you want them to be successful, then whatever modicum of success you have attained in your life, you're able to kind of do a passion osmosis process and transfer the passion to people. So
Super.
I and thank you again, Mr. Jamunathan, for saying that my thoughts are very, very clear. The only way to live life, young my friends, is to be very clear in your thoughts. Because if you let somebody sway you from one direction to the other, you won't be able to contribute. So all the best to all
Wow.
of you for your efforts.
Super, super. Thank you so much. And one last question. I mean, though you've spoken little bit, but your thoughts on Mentor My Board, and what should we, as Mentor My Board, do to build better governed boards in India?
See, my own feeling is that Mentor My Board is an opportunity, because there are very many. I know at least four bright women, okay, who are all in their maybe early 50s, who are aspiring to add their value. And some of them are really fantastic to
Hmm.
boards. They don't have a process. I mean, they'll get board certified, they'll want to be there. And I think I mentioned it to you, Divya, earlier. I mean, I am happy to be part of that initiative. If we
Yes.
can actually look at maybe the top 1,000 companies in India
Right.
and create a database where people who are interested, particularly women who want to join boards, we can get a group of people who are actually actively mentoring them, and also ensure that we also maybe have a not a ranking but a rating of what are their capabilities. And
Right.
you as Mentor My Board should be able to approach companies saying we'll give you qualified directors. And when I say qualified through a process of mentoring, which will go
Right.
into. I think that would be useful, because I see amazing. I'm fortunate to have amazing board directors as compatriots. I mean, Bhumika Batra of Crawford Bailey, who does such a fantastic job with the Hinduja Group, or Neeraj Sagi, who is a professional board director, former IAS officer, Amitabh Khan's compatriot, actually, in terms of same
Right.
batch of IAS. And she is an absolutely outstanding board director in Honeywell. So women can add tremendous value. So that's one recommendation I have for you, that let's make women directors successful in future.
So wonderful, kind of suggestion, sir. And I think if I just speak about the, how we are trying to bring in the tech enablement in this mismatch. I mean, yesterday I was speaking to a promoter director, not a promoter, investor director, and he said that we are looking for a women director in our EV, company where we have invested for more than 6 months, and we are not finding a woman who is into EV and who can add value to our boards.
I'll give you three candidates. You send me a mail, I'll give you three candidates
Wow,
by
please,
email.
please do that, sir. So what I'm trying to tell is that what we are building on Mentor My Board is also a very, very, strong AI based search for women who
Very good.
are ready for boardrooms, and the companies coming in on the platform, and they are able to get those women, when they are putting the criteria, so through a AI based kind of integration. So I would really love to have you as a mentor to us. And again, as women led startup, we are also starting our fundraise journey, so would love to have your insights. How do we really make it kind of a next level, organization. So I will speak to you and would be really, really love to have your help, and inputs and mentoring. See, Naila is our participant of Boom, and she's saying that would you be open to give us one-on-one mentoring, sir? So, I think
Let's, why don't we do one thing? Let's create this platform. Let's
sure,
let's have a discussion on how to make it happen. And why Nella, why me? There are at least 50 people I can suggest to you who can do mentoring. So you should have a choice, not just listen to one person and say, "Will you be my mentor?" And I always believe, by the way, that, and I said this even yesterday, that a good mentor is not necessarily somebody who is old and has gray hair or dyed hair like me, but somebody who's been on that path maybe 4 years before you and can really guide you there. I mean, I'm happy to be a mentor to anybody, but
sure,
I'm just saying that
absolutely.
it's important to also have a mentor group right from the maybe the age group of 30 to 70, and a mentee group from the age group of 20 to 60. So I think
Amazing.
us can learn from each other.
Superb, superb. So, wonderful interaction. There are a lot of questions in the chat, but you can, over a period, reply to those questions.
You can also post my email on the chat. Anybody who wants
Sure,
to send me an email, just feel free, not problem at all.
sure. I'll do that later on.
Sure.
Thank you so much for amazing interactions. And let me share with you all that, most iconic event for women directors and women board aspirants is happening in Mumbai. And this is our third Women Directors Conclave, where last year we had Honorable Finance Minister. This year we are again, trying. I'll not announce the name as of now until I get the confirmation from them. But Ganesh sir, I will speak to you, on my aspiration to bring in some key people, to the Women Directors Conclave. And also, it's not only a panel discussion. What we're trying to do is, mentoring roundtables. So a lot of innovative things in that conclave, so that we are actually able to bring that impact what we really want to. So I will speak to you on that separately. And to all the participants here, thank you so much for being amazing, audience to our chat here with Dr. Ganesh. And do write in chat whom do you want to see or listen in our next boardroom talk next week on Sunday. So stay tuned for the next week's boardroom talk with yet another personality from Indian boardrooms. Stay tuned and have great Sunday with your family. And last but not the least, thank you, Ganesh sir, for your time, your time, especially on Sunday morning, and also inviting a lot of wonderful people to this boardroom talk today. So thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your invaluable experience with all of us.
My pleasure, absolutely, Divya, and thank you very much to all of you. Nice
Thank you.
to have you on the chat. Bye.
Thank you.